All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. So hold tight. We'll let some of the people come into the webinar that have been waiting patiently, and then we'll get started. We'll have Aubrey kick us off here in about a minute.
And while we're waiting, Jake, I have an audience warm-up question. I'm going to paste it in the chat. What did you have for lunch today? Just curious. So I'll say what I had. I had a piece of homemade sourdough bread and a bowl of peas. Pretty exciting, I know. Let's see, someone had a fresh peach. That was Jake. Oh, that's way better than a bowl of peas. Ooh, falafel coffee. Homemade pizza. Lasagna soup. Oh my goodness. I'm coming to your houses for lunch, friends. Pasta with tomatoes. Roasted veggie bowl. Let's see, Maddie had Trader Joe's Indian food. Yeah, you guys had a better lunch than I did. Well, Jake, should we get started? Okay, awesome. Okay, I am juggling a few different screens today, everybody. So if it looks like I'm staring off into space, that's why I apologize. But welcome to Dark Skies Over Public Lands. This webinar is hosted by the Western Night Skies Council, which is a partnership between Utah State University's Gateway and Natural Amenity Region Initiative, or NAR, and the Colorado Plateau and Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperatives. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism for providing this platform for hosting these webinars. Okay, so if you want to learn a little bit more about the Western Night Skies Council, or NAR, I'm going to ask if Jake doesn't mind posting in the chat a link to our website. That's a great place to find out more information, access some different resources. Even if you're not a Gateway community, there are some great tools. There's other webinars being hosted. It's a great resource. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Aubrey Larson. I work for the Utah Community Development Office, and I'm also coordinator for the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative. And I am super excited for today's webinar for a variety of different reasons. Over the years, have been able to meet and work with a variety of different public land managers, and they've been such an incredible partner and resource, and they really help to protect so many of these natural resources that we all love and cherish and visit frequently. So I'm excited for you to get to know a little bit better our presenters today and just learn from their great wealth of knowledge and experience. Just note, this session is being recorded. It will be made available either this week or next, and you're welcome to share that, rewatch it. And at the end of the presentation today, I'll share a link to the YouTube channel where you can find those recordings. Okay, so audience question part 2. So Jake, if you'll help me out, I have a question for everyone to respond to besides what you had for lunch. If you had to pick one of your favorite public lands to go and see a starry night sky, where would you go and why? So I'll respond to that, and we'll read off a few in just a second. I'm going to kind of set up the framework for today's presentation. So the Western Night Skies Council, we come together quarterly to increase communication, connection, and collaboration around dark sky conservation. There's a whole bunch of different stakeholders and groups that come together. And last time we met in August, we had 7 panelists representing different public lands. So National Park Service, Forest Service, state parks, BLM, and we asked them to share their organization's perspectives on challenges, opportunities, and even advice related to dark skies conservation. And it was apparent based on audience responses and questions that there was really a hunger to hear more about what the panelists are doing on the ground and experiencing within their realms of responsibility. So we invited them back to delve a bit deeper. And today we have 4 incredible public land managers who are going to share their unique perspectives on a variety of different topics. So following the presentations, I'll be about 40 minutes. There will be an opportunity for audience Q&A, and you're welcome to use the chat, but I will encourage you to use the Q&A feature. You should see that at the bottom of the screen. Jake and I will try and moderate any questions you have, so feel free to use that. And then plan on spending about an hour with us today. We'll try and get everyone out on time, but we may go a little bit over depending on questions and responses. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jake, who's going to act as moderator for our 4 incredible panelists today.
Thanks, Aubrey. I want to echo Aubrey's gratitude for our panelists taking some time out of their busy days to share their insights with us. As we had talked, there was so much great information shared at our previous event, and there was such a hunger for deeper insight and a deeper dive into what public land managers are dealing with, what are some of their challenges, what are some of the innovative ways they're trying to work with dark skies. And so we wanted to shine a spotlight on the public lands and take a deeper dive and hopefully satisfy some of that desire to hear a more in-depth version of what we talked about at our previous event. So we have 4 awesome panelists today, ranging from a variety of different agencies as well as operating at a variety of different scales. And that was really intentional as Aubrey and I asked some of these folks that we know and interact with that to share some of those insights. So first we'll hear from Karen Trevino. She's the division lead for the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division of the National Park Service. And then we'll hear from Bella Moeller, who is a forest archaeologist and tribal relations program manager at the Gila National Forest. And then we'll hear from Justina Parsons Bernstein, who is a recreation interpretation resource manager with Utah State Parks. And then finally, we'll hear from Ashley Pipkin, the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division biologist and Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative Coordinator. So those are all a mouthful of titles, but amazing people that are doing amazing work. And we want to allow them about 7 to 10 minutes to talk about their work. And then we'll talk to them as a team and then open it up for question and answers, as Aubrey mentioned. So if you have something that you're burning to know about, you are curious about, you have a burning question, please do put it in the question and answer feature so that we can keep track of it and then pose those questions to our panelists. So with that, I want to turn the time over to Karen Trevino. We appreciate you being here. I know you're running from meeting to meeting. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time today to talk about some of the work happening and sharing that work with this collaborative of people that are really passionate about what you do. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Jake, very much. And thank you, Aubrey, as well, and everyone attending today. It's nice to be able to touch base with you all, especially, yes, as Jake alluded to, run from meeting to meeting, but it's important, and the work that you're all doing is really important. So I appreciate the opportunity. Before I jump into some of the specific prompts that Aubrey sent us in terms of some of the specific issues she wanted us to touch on. So I just found out that Merrell, as in the maker of hiking shoes and other outdoor wear, just released their Night Skies line today. So looks pretty cool. I know I'm going to run out and buy my hiking boots. But anyways, so one of the questions that I was asked to talk about is the biggest challenge that the Park Service faces relative to dark skies conservation. And while there are many, probably too many to start ticking off, probably one of the biggest challenges is addressing major sources of light pollution outside of park boundaries and in metropolitan areas. So when I think of towns near parks that, and this is system-wide, 420, maybe 4 now, park units ranging from urban, suburban to super remote areas, right? I think most of you know and can appreciate that most of the light that causes pollution and sky glow in national parks is not from the lights inside the national parks. So whether that's car dealerships, tall buildings, university parking lots, sports fields, whatever, malls, it's more difficult for the Park Service to actually address the lighting coming from urban areas. Another question was, how can localized dark sky groups support the mission of my organization? So I think that was sort of a broad question to most of the speakers today. And first, let me say, we so rely on support from all of your organizations, local municipalities, states, NGOs, universities. We do not stand alone, and it takes more than a small village. So I would say one of the best ways that your organizations, particularly the more local ones, can support the work of my division and others within the Park Service is with that specific issue and addressing light in urban areas, in urban and suburban. There is a lot of time and focus on keeping dark and relatively pristine areas, keeping them very dark. And while we love that kind of support, I think that there is not enough attention and time and money spent on addressing light pollution where it emanates from. And until that is done, the latter will always undermine the former if it's not properly addressed. And I know that, to the extent that we can, and as you're probably very aware, most states are very particular about how the Park Service spends appropriated money outside of park boundaries. And we always have to be really respectful of local municipalities and states and other federal jurisdictions as well. And so I think that's where localized dark sky groups can be immensely helpful. So the third question was, how can local communities engage with our agency or with the National Park Service or with specific parks? And I would say through parks themselves. Like engaging with my office is great. I think folks like Ashley, who of course works for the Washington office, but represents the Pacific West region. And so she's located there on the ground. That's great. I would say work with specific parks, work, through your websites, join the Common Learning Portal. I'm not sure, I don't think that you necessarily need to really engage with our agency to protect night skies. I think sometimes you guys do a better job of it without us, frankly. I admire, and we stand on your shoulders. I think the work that you're all doing out there is amazing and stands for itself. And while there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and we love those opportunities, don't let us stand in your way. I guess that's my message. Call on us for technical support. We have a lot of brilliant scientists that work in our division who are there to help and support you. But I say take the ball and run with it on your own. And then the last question was, best piece of advice you would share to dark sky advocates. That's a little harder one. I would say, first of all, please don't ever let the light go out of your passion. I think it's that passion that drives all of us in the work that we do. And don't be afraid to let that shine. I would say the best piece of advice would be, again, don't be afraid to take on hard things. So addressing urban light is a lot harder than keeping a dark place dark, right? There are a lot more stakeholders, a lot more competing interests, and a lot more controversy. But don't let that stop you. You can do hard things. Just make sure that your plan has realistic timelines and benchmarks for them. I know, especially early on in my career, and as my staff will tell you, even sometimes now, I get really excited about things and I want to see them done yesterday. And having unrealistic timelines probably can serve to undermine a project more than advance it. So be patient, be steadfast, stay passionate and committed. That's probably the best piece of advice that I can think of right now. But thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We appreciate you joining us and sharing your insights from sort of the largest of the perspectives. And there are a couple of questions. I'm going to hold off on those until the end when we have everybody together. But I'll let you look at those and maybe prep some of your ideas for those. But I do want to turn the time over to Bella Moeller. Again, she's the Forest Archaeologist and Tribal Relations Program Manager with the Gila National Forest. And we thought Bella could bring maybe a different insight, a different scale that she's working at, and some of the unique perspectives that's happening in the New Mexico part of this region that the Western Night Skies Council helps to unite. So Bella, with that, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Jake. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I just got back off an extended leave, so my computer's acting a little weird and I'm on one screen. So I'm going to have to turn my camera off. So hopefully you'll be able to hear and see everything. I won't be able to see the chat or anything. So I'll jump back on after I'm done. So I'm going to stop this and hopefully it'll share okay. Let's see. Okay, let me know if you can see that.
Yep. Okay,
great. Hopefully it's in the mode of going into full screen mode, I hope. So I think my kind of topic was cultural heritage and dark skies and a way to incorporate cultural resources into your program areas. So I am the forest archaeologist on the Gila National Forest in South Central New Mexico. And I've worked for several agencies in several different areas of the country. New Mexico is one of my favorites, and part of it is because of the dark skies in New Mexico. So in August of 2017, I'm sure most of you remember, there was a kind of a national phenomenon that swept the country, and it was that total solar eclipse, and everybody was going all over trying to get to some dark areas to see this. And we kind of had an influx in New Mexico, and I know I had friends working up in some of the really weird places like Wyoming, like places that nobody ever goes, and it was completely full. And
hey,
so,
Bella.
Yes.
Your screen is still it's not on the full screen yet. If you want to hit your yes, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. And is it still on the first one? Guys, I only have one screen. Sorry, I'm usually used to 3 screens, so I can't really see.
You're great. It's on your opening slide.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you. So, when that happened, public land started seeing kind of a renewed interest in astronomy and especially like astrotourism, things like that. And several parks, monuments, forests, we started offering visitors kind of some of those things tied to that, so that night sky programs started to get a little bit more traction, giving visitors a chance to see a different side of the public lands. And so programs like full moon walks, astronomy talks, archaeoastronomy, and like dark sky photography classes, for instance, were pretty big in New Mexico. Several of our parks and monuments and forests here in New Mexico started offering them. They're very popular, but for the staff, that actually gives us an added concern because we are on active archaeological sites or national monuments. So it gives us an added concern. So we have to limit those numbers. So these are things that we, have to work on, and we have to, put these things out. And if we're in a very popular area or a very, there's a lot of visitors, we kind of have to see how we can adjust those programs. So one of the areas that we have here on the Gila is the Cosmic Campground. So the Cosmic Campground was the first international dark sky sanctuary in the Northern Hemisphere. So if you've never been, I highly recommend going, but the Cosmic Campground is basically, it's a campground, it's an active campground, but it sits in the middle of basically nowhere. I mean, it's awesome, but it has 4 telescope pads, and it's surrounded by very low hills, but it's at an elevation of a little over 5,300 feet. So it has a 360-degree view, and those low hills actually help obstruct any unnatural light. So cars or any towns that are nearby. There aren't really any towns, but there are some ranches out there. But those low hills actually help obstruct any unnatural light. So it is a very dark sky area. And so we get a lot of folks that come out and do astrophotography. We get night sky parties, like we host star parties, we do camp events, and then just natural, sky viewing, especially folks that come from Tucson or Phoenix, Paso. Some of these folks have never seen the sky the way you see it out there. So we do tend to host these parties. But as an archaeologist, I try to incorporate the things that go hand in hand with that, like oral traditions for our Native American tribes that aboriginally occupy these areas. So we do try to incorporate those other things into the program. And this is actually just a few photos to kind of give you an idea of what Cosmic looks like. During the day, you can see the telescope pads there, those low hills that kind of surround the campground, but you do have a 360-degree view, and it sits right next to the Gila Wilderness. So it is a pretty dark area. The Milky Way is usually phenomenal there. So we do get a lot of folks that come out just to photograph the Milky Way. And then along with the photography classes, we also do archaeology talks. And these talks are actually based on things like origin stories, migration stories, and the trick tales that are actually tied to night skies. So these are tied to the sky that Native Americans used as, things like the changing of the seasons, the passage of time. These were throughout history, the sky was used to basically shape the beliefs and the traditions of these societies. And many archaeological sites are celestially aligned, and in Pueblo societies specifically, which is what our cultures are on the Gila, a lot of the festivals were based on constellations or celestial events. So we do tend to use that when we do our talks and our star parties, things like that. But we also have quite a few tribal elders that will come out and do discussions around campfires. These are very informal question and answer kind of things. If they're there for tribal visits for other reasons, they often come out and do these very informally. They're not always announced because they are very kind of impromptu, so we'll just go on to one of our campsites and do like campfire, question and answers around with tribal elders. So we do a lot of those with our groups that are there, and they always get a phenomenal response. And so we do try to keep that, like I said, keep that involved with our tribes. But when we look up at the night sky, we essentially are seeing the same sky that humans have seen for thousands of years. So this, in a sense, makes that the ultimate cultural resource. And this is one of the catalysts that prompted lawmakers in New Mexico to enact certain protections. So in 1999, the New Mexico Heritage Preservation Alliance declared New Mexico sky an endangered cultural resource. And the New Mexico Night Sky Protection Act was passed. And it was unique because it was actually tied to cultural resource law. So it wasn't, it wasn't passed specifically on night sky or environmental. It was actually tied to cultural resources. And so with that, there kind of became like a snowball effect in a sense. Compliance with NSPA is required now by the New Mexico Electrical Code. Building codes are tied to this. So this law actually then, there's actually municipality laws now, county laws, all these things that are tied to this. And I put the link in there if you care to go look at that. But there's several things that give you strategies for reducing light pollution, for better light fixtures, best management practices. And these are actually used throughout the state of New Mexico now. And because of initiatives like these, New Mexico State University, their physics program, which includes astronomy and astrophysics majors, is ranked in the top 60 in the world. And the Tomball Observatory, which is a teaching and public outreach facility on the campus in Las Cruces, that's in the southern part of the state, actually has several telescopes, but it's actually the Las Cruces Astronomical Society actually hosts viewing parties. When the Neowise comet came through, they had a lot of public programs where they had like viewing parties and had folks come in and be able to see things, and anytime there's any kind of celestial event. So these are all kind of, I guess, bolstered by the fact that these laws actually were enacted and they were all tied to cultural resource legislation. So that was really unique in the state of New Mexico. So again, these are just some ways that we utilize cultural heritage and cultural resources in advocating for dark skies. So, one of the ways that we tell folks is, become familiar with your resources and become familiar with your Indigenous communities and your local volunteer groups. Because those folks are there to assist you, and they're really great in gaining traction with lawmakers and local populations. Astrotourism isn't going away. Visitors more and more are coming out to parks, forests, monuments, and they're looking for new ways to enjoy the public lands. And this is a way that it's always been there, but it really wasn't really looked at in a lot of places. So, we often talk about those kind of different niches that we can look at, and especially if you're in an area where you can do these night sky programs that, folks never really, heard of. Anytime we do one of these and we put these out, we get such a long list. And during COVID, we're still doing them, but we have to limit even more because of COVID protocols. So we're constantly being asked, can you do more often? Can you do more often? And because of staffing, we can't, but we have to limit even more because of COVID. And I hate that because I love doing them, but they're really popular and there's always folks on the waiting list for us. So, just again, things that you can look at that are kind of outside what you would normally think of. Talk to your archaeologists, because I'm sure they've got things that are aligned celestially that you can tie into, because most sites are in some way or another. So with that, just wanted to say thank you. This was actually, I just got back and I was at Gates of the Arctic National Park up in Alaska, and that's one of my photos from the Northern Lights. So again, another reason that we want to keep those skies dark. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bella. We appreciate your unique perspective and some of the tools, highlighting some of the efforts and tools that you've organized. I'm sure there'll be a few questions at the end specifically about the work you're doing on the Gila National Forest. So thank you very much. Again, we'll hold questions to the end, and maybe there'll be some synergy amongst the panelists when we talk about a few of these questions. So with that, I want to shift over and introduce Justina Parsons-Bernstein, a Recreation Interpretation Resource Manager with Utah State Parks. Justina has been a force to be reckoned with when it comes to dark skies here in the state of Utah, and especially in her efforts to help shepherd some of our state parks in changing their status and awareness of dark skies. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Justina, to talk about the work that you've done with Utah State Parks.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to this fun discussion about dark skies over public lands. And Aubrey is actually going to be my board op. I used to be on radio and she's going to board up for me here and run the slides. So next slide, please, Aubrey. So I'm going to talk about successes and challenges to the Utah State Parks Dark Sky Initiative. And the successes, just to let you know so you can anticipate, there's a myth that we are a machine churning out dark sky applications, because we do have 10 international dark sky parks in our system. It's not a machine. It's a lot of hard work. There's the rumors that we've discovered shortcuts. No, there are no shortcuts, folks. And when you get to doing your own applications, if you haven't already, you will see that there are no shortcuts. And I'm going to talk about dark sky help that we receive, because no park does this alone. We have lots of helpers from lots of different entities and individuals. And then I'm going to talk about unified dark sky stewardship messaging, and then providing continual dark sky training for our staff. Okay, next slide. So in the beginning, there was darkness, and 3 Utah state parks thought that darkness was good. And Dead Horse Point State Park, Goblin Valley State Park, and Antelope Island State Park all really got going on their international dark sky application process by the summer of 2015. And two of those parks, Dead Horse Point State Park and Goblin, attended Colorado Plateau gathering of dark sky entities, and that set a fire under not just state parks, but national parks and other like entities to start doing active stewardship of and preservation of dark skies in the area. Next slide. So I hold an interpretation training every year for all staff, and during the summers I say, hey, what do people want to share and what do people want to learn? And we have people from within our system and without our and outside our system that come and help train. But in the summer of 2015, I got a message from Crystal White, who was the assistant manager at Dead Horse Point State Parks at that time, saying, hey, I want to share this thing about dark skies. I want to do a training about dark sky. And I said, what are dark skies? And then she filled me in and I said, hey, that sounds awesome. So go ahead, you'll have a session. And then Jim Wells, who was the interpretive ranger at Goblin Valley at the time, and now he's the manager there, said, yeah, and I'll chip in and show people how to run a star party. So we had that training in November 2015. And from that training, 10 additional parks came to me and said, hey, we want to do this, but we need help. We can see it takes a lot of work. How can you help us do this? And so I put my head together about it and created the Utah State Parks Dark Sky Initiative. And next slide, please. From that, we began the process of going towards having lots of applications for lots of different parks over time. To address the myth of the machine, because we had 6 parks designated in the last 12 months, people think that happened in that period of time, but it did not. We started the majority of these parks in December 2015 when I put together the initiative and got my first dark sky intern to help me with the processes of dark sky measurements and starting mapping and all this stuff that you need to do. So our first 2 parks were designated. They started the process in 2015 and they were designated in 2016. And they had huge champions. That's Crystal White, that was at Dead Horse State Park. And then 2 champions at Goblin Valley, both Nathan Martinez, who was the manager at the time, and James Wells, who was the interpretive person. They were big champions and they had a fire lit under them. And they got their applications done with the help of other entities, doing some measurements that were important in the process. And then Antelope Islands was next. It had started in 2015 and we got that through in 2017, and then Steinecker State Park in 2018. So we were going great guns till 2018 when Steinecker was designated. And then we had the sudden death of our parks director at the time, Fred Hayes. And that had a domino effect because, and just stood our program at a standstill, because all of a sudden there was all this shuffling of positions. So the person that moved up into Fred's position as director, and then we had to backfill deputy director, and then the positions that emptied from there. And it was just, and then some of our managers who had been at the dark sky parks and who had been working toward their applications from December of 2015 on, it just kind of stood us still. And we really didn't pick that up again until till the end of 2019. And I knew I had to do something to really, really help our parks that had started in December 2015 just really finish before their statute of limitations ran out. And so I decided I would have to do something to hire a seasonal that could actually, that was a dedicated person that was just dedicated to helping with dark skies, and brought all the parks that had been working since 2015 on, and asked if they wanted to finish up, and then if there was any new interest. And anyway, we helped. You can see that we put through 6 applications, as I said. We put them all through in 2020. Some did not receive their designations till 2021, or the majority didn't because of the backup at IDA. Nothing to do with our stuff. We submitted all of them in 2020. But as you can see, we have 10, and then of the 6 that were designated in the last 12 months, 5 of those had been in process really for almost 5 years. Next slide. So nobody does this alone, as I say. You can see here pictures of my past and present dedicated dark sky team, and that's seasonals, interns, and volunteers. And these folks just help us out so much. And just really cannot say enough about individual volunteers like Tom Howes and Tom Elder that help us out at Steinecker, Paul Ricketts, who's at the U of U South Physics Observatory, who helps us everywhere, John Lundwall, who's an archaeoastronomy specialist and also the co-founder of the Utah Valley Astronomy Club, Ryan Andreessen, who now runs Night Sky Science, and Shelby Stock, who's my current and fabulous dark sky seasonal. Next slide, please. And of course, our partners, because entities like planetariums, like Clark Planetarium, Dark Sky Layton, which is now Night Sky Science, and the Physics Observatory, as I said, South Physics Observatory, all these astronomy clubs around the state are so helpful for us for helping share their telescopes with the public at our events, but also some do night sky photography for us that we include in our applications and our annual reports, and some take readings for us. And then we are co-located, state parks are co-located with a lot of national parks, and there is such a lovely spirit of cooperation and support of each other's programs, and with national park rangers and state parks rangers where we are co-located. Next slide, please. And then I do want to just shout out to Shelby. Those of you who don't know Shelby Stock, she's phenomenal. Has been my dark sky seasonal for 2 years, and she was a volunteer for us going around the state, helping be a telescope operator at our dark sky events before that time. And we literally could not have submitted 6 dark sky applications in 2020 without her help. And by the way, folks, Utah State Parks was never shut down. We were being bombarded with millions more visitors than we'd ever been before, and we still got those 6 applications done. So that is in large part to Shelby and her efforts. Next slide. So one of the things I have done to help out our state parks, a lot of our state parks have where they are going to hold their observation events, where we're going to hold our dark sky events, have no electricity. And but we wanted to unify dark sky messaging, because one of the big things from IDA is a star party is not a dark sky event without talking about dark sky messaging. And I wanted to unify what that messaging was and have it be, sanctioned by IDA about what kind of messaging should be shared. So I came up with the idea. I created this 20-foot vinyl banner and multiple copies to any of our parks who wanted to use it, that have about 12 dark sky panels on them, talking about the changes in light pollution over time and how to be respectful camper with regards to your light usage while you're at a state park, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we call volunteers from the audience, and we unscroll it and scroll it up on each side, and it can be used very effectively to demonstrate directional full cutoff lighting, because we don't have electricity at most of the places we're sharing this. So you can use a full cutoff flashlight directed downward to illuminate the panel that you are talking about here in the dark, and talk about directional lighting too, and how that effectively can be used. So I have distributed this to every dark sky park that wanted it, and they roll it out and use it before every dark sky event. We don't just do star parties. We have, full moon events, full moon kayaking. We have what I call scorpion safaris. We have bat and owl programs, any kind of thing that we do that we can gear toward dark sky stewardship. We just roll this thing out and talk about the dark sky messaging before it, and it's very effective. Next slide. One of the things that I do is to make sure to provide continual dark sky training for my staff, and that we've run private just for our own staff trainings, bringing helpers in, and we have telescope training, we have astrophotography training for them, and we want them to always have a handful of things, what I call a handful of programs and skills in their pocket that they can run successful dark sky programs. And we train them in basic astronomy and stargazing by eye and constellation tours and different kinds of programs, so that they can vary their programs. And by the way, programs that don't rely on having to see stars in case of cloudiness, or what I'll talk about even more is wildfire smoke at the end of this. So I want them to be trained in that. And also, I came up with the idea because when I worked for wildlife, I'd been for years the destination for wetlands master naturalist. And I knew Mark Lorez Casanova very well. And I said, hey, you've mastered the terrestrial with your three emphases on the ground. How would you feel about offering a dark sky master naturalist course? And he totally took to it. And we partnered with Zach Sherrill, who was then at the time an interpretive ranger at Cedar Breaks National Monument, who, unbeknownst to me, had been working on a master astronomy program, which is more intensive than our dark sky master naturalist. And we just all cooperated together, and we got that course put up online. And it's up there. Many people have taken it, and we've had 3 field schools now where the people come and do, to complete the training, you need a 3-day field school that we run. And that gives a lot of hands-on expertise and training to the materials they've read online. It's a 9-module course online. And so just continual training is very important. And just because someone's had training on a telescope once doesn't make them an expert. So keeping that training fresh and renewing it and renewing those skills is important. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk a bit about challenges, employee turnover, my dedicated dark sky position, and wildfire impact on dark sky. Next slide. So employee turnover, I talked about it a little bit already, but what is heartbreaking is you have a champion who helps you get that, who helps get that dark sky designation for their park. They're on fire for it. And they either leave for a variety of reasons before the application is complete, and you get a new manager who's not quite as on fire for dark skies. And what do you do? And then there's the times when they get it all the way through and they move on, and the next manager isn't as on fire for it. Now, they should be supportive of it, but sometimes they don't have the skills or the time because they're learning a new park to keep up the stuff that's needed to be kept up to keep that designation active. And so I think that it is very important to have a layer, if you're in a state park system, and National Parks already has this, but to have a layer above the individual park that supports dark sky, so that if there is a dip in skill or excitement, that this extra layer can come in and make sure that there's the social media outreach, that the readings are being taken, that programs are being held, that stuff can still stay until you train up the new person and can excite them enough to want to take these things on. And that you can also provide support, because state parks are famously thinly staffed, I will put it. And they're literally, we're like doubling our visitorship. And they're busy saving people's lives every single day and dealing with squabbles and keeping the parks clean and safe. And they're so tired, and to ask them to stay up at night and to take readings in the darkest part of the night and to put on programs that go into the wee hours of the morning is cruel sometimes. And so to have this extra layer, I think, is very important. Next slide, please. So one of my challenges is when I first said we were, because of the excitement of Crystal and Jim and Nathan, hey, let's do this dark sky thing. We have 10 more parks interested in it, and I want to take it on as something under my bailiwick. And my administration said, we don't think this was, in 2015, we don't think this is going to be a thing. And I said, thank you, gentlemen, and walked out. And I said, I'll find another way to fund it. But I've unfortunately been having to find another way to fund it ever since 2015. And I've done various things, written grants, and expended a large part of my minute budget that I oversee. But my latest scheme is that I have a cost share among the 8 to 10 parks in a given year that want the help of a dedicated dark sky position. And that is what's worked the best. And that's what we've done so far. But I am trying to get a full-time position funded for Utah State Parks, because that's what we need for a full-time dark sky position. That would be the most optimal. So I ever hope and ever make my presentations, and we'll see what we get. But for right now, it's a cost share among parks that utilize Shelby's expertise and skills. Next. Wildfire impact has just become, in the last couple of years, it has so impacted our dark sky and the dark skies all over the West, inclusive of Canada, all the way down to the southern borders. And that has impacted. See, here was this great article about how Utah is, this great dark sky place, and people are coming here to see our beautiful dark skies. And what did they feature as their cover photograph? This was in August, but how wildfires had impacted at the view of dark skies at Steinecker State Park. And next slide. This has become such an apparent problem. The New York Times has instituted a wildfire tracking map that you could check on every day. And I just snapshotted this one from August 27th that showed there were no active wildfires in Utah at all. But as you can see by the dark cloudiness, the dark wildfireness smoke over Utah, we were totally impacted by other people's wildfires. And that went on for so long. And how this impacts us, and actually the New York Times has run a few articles on the same topic, interestingly enough, about wildfires impacting our air quality, but also our dark skies. And so this has changed when you can actually take accurate readings of dark skies. So used to be, we tried to get them in the summer after our programs that we were running. This doesn't work anymore because of the smoke in the skies. So now it's late fall to early spring that you have to get your readings. Unfortunately, because Shelby for us is a seasonal position that kind of runs in the exact opposite of when now the accurate times for taking readings are. This is a problem for us, and another reason why we need a year-round position. So let's see, next slide. So that's just an encapsulation of our challenges and our successes. And I just want to point out that the wildfire thing is really a regional thing that no one park or system is going to be able to handle, and is actually going to be a thing that IDA is going to have to take into account, that is affecting our quality of dark sky, but has nothing to do with light pollution in itself. So that's the end of mine. Thank you.
Thanks, Justina. And I think being called a machine because you're doing amazing stuff isn't a bad thing. So I'm going to turn the time over to Ashley. Ashley Pipkin, who is the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division Biologist and the coordinator of the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, which is the sister cooperative to the Colorado Dark Sky, and one of the major forces in bringing the Western Night Skies Council together to help unite everybody in this region, like Justina mentioned, addressing and talking about issues that go beyond borders that we typically draw around dark skies. So thank you, Ashley. I'll turn the time over to you to finish off. And then if you have any more questions, please take the time to put them in the Q&A. There's a ton of really great ones, and Aubrey and I will cull through them and try to get our panelists on their heels and share their expertise with us. Ashley, it's up to you.
Hello, everyone. Can you see me and hear me, Jake?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm going to start off with a video about the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative. Hopefully this works.
The Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative is a voluntary initiative to link communities, tribes, businesses, state agencies, federal agencies, and citizens in a collaborative effort. Our mission is to celebrate the view of the cosmos, minimize the impact of outdoor lighting, protect natural night skies from restored natural darkness in areas where it has been degraded, and promote astronomy-based recreation and tourism. You can help by promoting night sky-related activities and providing community support. It can be as simple as asking your neighbors to turn off their porch lights at night.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for letting me share that video. That was a commercial we used for a program, and we share that with everyone to try to build capacity for the work that we're all doing. And that's basically what Western Night Skies Council is. That's all, both of the cooperatives. What we really want to do and hope to do is build our capacity. So my name is Ashley Pipkin. I work for the National Park Service and I coordinate the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative. I wanted to start off with a little introduction on my background as a public lands manager and as a National Park Service employee. My role is to serve the public, and that could be any number of things. It could be restoring a species. That picture on the left is my first ever Park Service job 10 years ago, where we were improving beaver habitat. That's a beaver tail in my hand. Or it could also mean better understanding habitat or communicating science, the two other photos you see, or what we're all here to do today, improve natural night skies. In the time I've worked for the National Park Service, you really begin to think about how one person like me or any of you can become most effective in our time serving the public and working towards achieving either the National Park Service mission or achieving personal fulfillment in our career or life's work. And a lot of it comes down to really listening, broadening perspectives, and expanding our capacity to do the work that we all feel is important. And being a good partner and being a good public servant really means being a good partner. And that means listening to those you are serving and partnering with. In my current position, working for the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division, that's the national office that Karen supervises. And, you know, our division serves 423 National Park Service units. And that really expands the feeling that, you know, I am one person. I work on the small team and I'm one person. And, you know, the small team has a responsibility to this whole region of parks. And furthermore, we are not working with a resource that is concerned with boundaries that are drawn on a map. You know, a city hundreds of miles away from a national park can impact that park's night skies. So to meaningfully accomplish any of the work related to protecting the night sky, you really need partners and people sharing information. And I think that's truly the best way to protect public lands. In November of 2019, we launched the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative at the International Dark Sky Association's annual general meeting. And that group has been working before this for about a year, trying to get some ideas together to promote this area, trying to get our goals organized that we talked about in that video. And those goals really are, you know, to celebrate the view of the cosmos. That is just so important because we really want the people that have access to night skies or that get to go see those night skies to really appreciate what they have and know that it's special so that they want to protect it. To minimize the impact of outdoor lighting, this is how we are going to keep those areas pristine and to protect natural night skies and restore natural darkness in areas where it's been degraded. This is, of course, how we're going to educate people who have lost the night sky and make a call to action. I think one of the most important things we can do is remind everyone that what they do, it matters, what their actions matter. And then the last one is to promote astronomy-based recreation and tourism. And that's really just how we're going to show communities that this work is worth doing, that it will make their community better, it'll make their citizens happier, but it will also provide economic benefits and provide opportunities for members of their community and for businesses to grow. I think the greatest asset of the cooperative is learning from all the amazing members that we have sharing with each other. We have amateur astronomers, university partners, nonprofits, business members, supporters, and advocates. And they all have one thing in common, that they really appreciate the natural night sky and they want to make it better. I was thinking a little bit about this before the talk, and I wouldn't say that the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative or the Colorado Plateau, it really has like a secret sauce. Like I think we just all simply share a passion and we bring our gifts to the table to help each other out. Each of the spotlights that you see here and many, many more can be found on our webpage, brdarkskies.org. And all of these spotlights, they're not they're not explicitly asked this question, but they all contain a simple offer. How can I help? And a simple request. Do you see how you can help me? How we can work together in a cooperative fashion. What I love most about the cooperative is that we just are bringing our gifts and we share them with one another. For example, before coordinating the cooperative, I had never written a grant or facilitated a call with even 10 people on it. Now I have experience doing both of those things and much more advanced experience. My skills continue to grow, and I think the skills of our cooperative members continue to grow as well. One thing Aubrey asked me to talk about today, in addition to the cooperative model, is communicating science. And that's one of those skills that I think I had before the cooperative started, but that skill has grown so much since I've been coordinating with cooperative. And I really want to share that, the message has always been pretty simple. Light pollution is growing, we're losing access to our night sky, and we're losing access across the country. People are flocking to protected areas, but a lot of the light pollution is coming from, like Karen said, large cities, large urban areas, and even smaller gateway communities outside of many of the protected areas that we care most about. While the message is simple, the solutions really are not simple. They're much more nuanced. These are just a few slides from talks that I get. I give talks almost monthly about this topic. And what I have learned more than anything is that, these issues are not simple. They're specific to each kind of place, a protected area, a community. A gateway community is going to be different than an urban community. Each community is going to be different. Each park is going to be different. And, 2 years ago, even, we didn't have a clear roadmap for the best way to light a community. And guidance is different than a roadmap or a clear and defined plan. And a good idea is different than science-informed decision-making. And even this talk, is short. And it doesn't provide all the information that we need. Giving a community or a park a rat card that tells them about ways to improve the night sky really isn't enough. And we need members and communities and people dedicated to this work, and that also really have a grasp of the science and have some technical background that can support lighting decisions in these big urban areas or gateway communities that actually improve night skies. And so we need people like you, like all of you in Western Night Skies Council, like all the members in the cooperative, to be able to share information so that people can make informed decisions to protect the resource. And only once that really starts to happen can we see communities and public lands see improvements in their night sky. A dark sky cooperative approach with multiple members, all with the same passions and all working towards the same goals, seemed the best way to leverage what we know about working together and to achieve meaningful progress on public lands. And I am endlessly thankful to all the people that work so hard to participate in this council and in the cooperative, and that dedicate their time to improving the night sky. So thank you so much for all the work you do.
Ashley, thank you very much. It is 3 o'clock, and I know we wanted to keep things to an hour. There are a ton of really great questions, and I want to pose a few of them. So if people have places to go, we understand that the time, their time commitment to this webinar, but we are going to ask a few of these questions so that we can have it recorded and give the audience an opportunity to interact with our wonderful panelists. So there is a question, I guess, probably targeted to you, Bella, about the New Mexico Night Sky Protection Act being really out of date. It was written in the 90s, late 90s, and technology and things have advanced since then. And the question for you, Bella, is do you know if there's any movements to update that so that it stays up to date with the technology ever changing when it comes to lighting. Do you know anything about that, Bella?
I haven't actually kept up as much as I probably should have, but I know that there was a repeal and a reenactment in 2009. So I would definitely take a look at that. But the way that it is written, the NSPA is written, is that it's actually up to each municipality. So, but it is written that if there was something already like there that is more stringent, then it could be kept on. But if it wasn't, it had to be replaced. So if something came in after that was actually against the regs in the law, then it should be addressed, because it is very clear in that. But yeah, I would take a look at that. Like I said, I know there was a repeal and a reenactment in 2009, but I don't think there's been anything since then, honestly.
Awesome. And Belle, thank you for sharing that resource and how that's affected your work in New Mexico. I think that's something a lot of states or a lot of advocates in our group have looked to as a possible way to get to further their work in their own state. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question from Marty that I think is a great question that several of our panelists could address. But Marty asks, what are visitor responsibilities or ethics to honor the dark skies? What features need to be in or on campers, RVs, camper vans, and other vehicles that access and stay in public lands, keeping in mind that half the park is after dark? Justina or Bella, I think would be great to answer this one.
Well, if I want to jump in, I shared last time I sent along we have signage and waysides and pamphlets that we distribute about good neighborliness to protect dark skies when you're at one of our parks, so you don't bug your neighbors. And those are distributed. Maybe a kind conversation, not confrontational, with someone, if you can catch them about, hey, we're here to, we're really excited about watching the Milky Way tonight. Do you think you could turn off your outdoor lights after you've gone inside? Just a kind of very cordial and what you're hoping to see. And, they probably have never thought about how they're impacting what's going on with you. So those are just my suggestions.
And I'll just jump in, at least for Cosmic, which is our dark sky sanctuary. We also have on our website and also in our literature, if you come into Cosmic, we suggest getting there before dark. But if you do happen to have to come in after, you have to have red filters or red, you can buy like that cellophane stuff over your headlights. And also any flashlights or anything you use have to have red lights on them. There's no fires allowed in the area where the telescope pads are or any of the viewing pads are. So those are actually separate areas like Cosmic. So yeah, no campfires, no flashlights or anything that you have like a flashlight or camper lights have to have red filters over them.
Thanks, guys. I just wanted to point out, I did post a recent Spotlight article on this very topic, Park After Dark. I'm trying to remember who wrote it, but it's just a great overview of some of those stargazing etiquette considerations. So check it out if you want to learn more about this very important topic.
So this question is kind of for Karen. Karen, you mentioned some of the partnerships and how a lot of the management ends or at the borders of the National Park Service parks, they sort of, they have a hard time enacting or guiding communities. And so when it comes to dark skies. So the question was, in your opinion, Karen, do you think we should concentrate on gateway communities to the national parks as sort of the first people to have a conversation with? Or do you think it's better to work on bigger issues, maybe less proximate cities, but maybe they're a bigger source of lighting pollution? Where would you say maybe the folks here in the Western Night Skies Council could focus their attention? What would be your advice?
Yes. I think, all kidding aside, I'm not sure it's an either or. And I'm a huge advocate of riding as many horses as possible. So if someone had extremely limited resources and really had to make a choice between the two, I would say go where you have the most likelihood of success. And I hope you can hear me because I just got a notice that my internet is unstable. Am I still coming through?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. I have a feeling that means that maybe my son is home from school and starting to suck off from my internet. But anyways, I would recommend, if you're local and you're in a small municipality, work with your local chamber of commerce. Find those big businesses, like I said, the shopping centers with the huge floodlights in the parking lots, or a car dealership or a sports field. If you happen to be near a larger city, and it's not going to cost you very much to go set up meetings with those folks, then I would say do that. So I'd kind of myself personally strategize wherever I was going to get the most bang for the buck. And a lot of that will depend on your own personal location and your own personal resources.
This is Ashley, just to contribute to that. I think starting where you live, your neighbors are the most likely to listen to you, and you'll have the best voice in your own community. And I think that that's where people will have the most success. Once they've achieved success in their own community, move out from there. But I think if we all did it in our own communities, that would be amazing and the best place to start. And I think that's where we have the most success often.
And success begets success. So there's nothing like, being able to point to, and, we do this a lot, right? I think many of you know Ruskin Hartley, and Ruskin came to Fort Collins. We collaborate a lot with the International Dark Sky Association. And we did a walk through some neighborhoods with some folks from the city of Fort Collins and some other people on my staff. And being able to point to different areas where you actually had some success or show other people is invaluable, because no one wants to be the first. And people, well, I always want to be, but that's just me. But most people, and especially if they're part of a community, don't want to be out on that branch all alone. Sometimes that can be a scary place too. So being able to show success, as Ashley mentioned, is really, really useful.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists. I don't want to go too far over time, and I appreciate the wisdom that was shared there. If anybody's watching the chat, there's a lot of really great resources that people are sharing at this through the chat, which is exactly the whole purpose of the Western Night Skies Council. It's to unite all the really great things that are happening in different organizations throughout our region to help elevate the conversations and the abilities of our members to make real change and to get those wins, Karen, that you mentioned, for the parks and for our public lands and our communities as a whole. So thank you. I think the panelists today, I think, really demonstrated the multifaceted challenges that they're facing, as well as some of the unique opportunities different public land managers have taken. And I know this is just a very small subset of all the great work that's happening on our public land. So thank you. I want to turn it over to Aubrey to introduce or to wrap us up and talk a little bit about what's coming down the road in the near future.
Hey, Aubrey and Jake, if I can just say, I didn't get to read any of the chat while I was, of course, presenting, and there were a couple of things that were addressed to me, so I did answer them in chat. But are you going to share chat maybe with the group who is on here? Or I'm not sure, just so everybody gets those in case they had to go or whatever.
Yeah, I think we'll copy the chat and curate it a little bit so that it reads a little cleaner, and we take out some of the questions or the comments that are not relevant, and have that as part of the recording and something you can download. So those resources that you shared, Justina, we can get out to a wider audience.
Thanks, Jake. And great question, Justina. We'll try and make sure that anyone whose questions weren't answered, that we'll send those to the panelists and see if they'll kindly respond afterwards. So I'll just wrap things up. Thanks for sticking with us. I know we're a little bit after, but just thanks again to all of you who've joined us, the presenters, virtual hand of applause. And I'll just remind you, today's webinar is recorded. It'll be available soon. But if you want to look at some past recordings or find it later, I'll have Jake paste in the chat. This is a link to our YouTube channel. So it's a playlist of all Western Night Skies Council presentations and a great resource if you want to look at some of those. So with that, we will have a future webinar that will be very similar to what was presented today, but we're going to flip it and have it be a panel of community leaders and entities that work with communities and have them kind of share their perspectives around this similar topic. So that will come in late fall, early winter. So look for a registration link and more info coming soon. So with that, we'll wrap things up. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.